Welcome to the Arun Church podcast, where our mission is bringing life to everyone, everywhere, every day. Each podcast episode features the latest talk from our church, which are released weekly. We're passionate about Jesus, love to worship together, and are committed to changing our community for the better. Connect with us at arunchurch.com. Hello, everybody. Everybody all right? Had a good Easter? Good. So we are looking this week at a new series, and it's called Mountaineering with Moses. A little mini-series that's going to take us right up to the summer. And we're looking for the whole year at base camp, how we want to be people that are mountaineering with God, that we go to the mountains, that we're with him in the valleys, that he is with us in every situation in our lives. Base camp, where we gather and then we go, where we encourage each other, where we spur each other on, and then we go and we adventure. And so that's what we're looking at for the whole of the year. And of course, Moses was a mountaineer, wasn't he? He went to the heights with God. And so we are going to have a look at 1 and 2 Exodus, all right? So it's a bit of a lot to read, but it's such a very important story. So it says this. I'm going to start at verse 6. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers, that whole generation, the children of Israel kept on reproducing, and they were very prolific. A population explosion in their own right, and the land was filled with them. And a new king came to power in Egypt who didn't know Joseph. And he spoke to his people with alarm. There are way too many of these Israelites for us to handle. We've got to do something. Let's devise a plan to contain them, lest there's a war and they should join our enemies or just walk off and leave us. And so they organized them into work gangs and put them to hard labor under gang foremen. They built the storage cities of Pithom and Ramesses for Pharaoh, but the harder the Egyptians worked them, the more children the Israelites had. Children everywhere. Egyptians got so they couldn't stand the Israelites and treated them worse than ever, crushing them with slave labor. They made them miserable with hard labor, making bricks and mortar and back-breaking work in the fields. They piled on the work, crushing them under the cruel workload. The king of Egypt had a talk with the 2 Hebrew midwives. One was named Shiphrah and the other Pulah. Anyway, don't call your little girl that, maybe, he said. Anyway, he said, when you deliver the Hebrew women, look at the sex of the baby. If it's a boy, kill him. If it's a girl, let her live. But the midwives had far too much respect for God and didn't do what the king of Egypt ordered. So they let the baby boys live. And the king of Egypt called in the midwives. Why didn't you obey my orders? You've let those babies live. And the midwives answered Pharaoh, the Hebrew women aren't like the Egyptian women. They're vigorous. Before the midwife can get there, they've already had the baby. And God was pleased with the midwives. And the people continued to increase in number, a very strong people. And because the midwives honored God, God gave them families of their own. So Pharaoh issued a general order to all his people. Every boy that is born, drown him in the Nile and let the girls live. A man from the family of Levi married a Levite woman, and the woman became pregnant and had a son. And she saw there was something special about him, and she hid him. She hid him for 3 months. When she couldn't hide him any longer, she got a little basket boat made of papyrus, waterproofed it with tar and pitch, and placed the child in it. And then she set it afloat in the reeds at the edge of the Nile. The baby's older sister found herself a vantage point a little way off and watched to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter came down to the Nile to bathe. Her maidens strolled on the bank, and she saw the basket boat floating in the reeds and sent her maid to get it. She opened it and saw the child, a baby crying, and her heart went out to him, and she said, this must be one of the Hebrew babies. And when his sister was before her, do you want me to go and get a nursing mother for the Hebrews so she can nurse the baby for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said, yes, go. And the girl went and called the child's mother, Moses' mum. Pharaoh's daughter told her, take this baby and nurse him for me. I'll pay you. And the woman took the child and nursed him. After the child was weaned, she presented him to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her son. And she named him Moses, pulled out, saying, I pulled him out of the water. As time passed, Moses grew up, and one day he went and saw his brothers, and he saw all the hard labor. And then he saw an Egyptian hit a Hebrew, one of his relatives. He looked this way and then that, and then he realized there was no one in sight, and he killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. The next day he went out there again, and 2 Hebrew men were fighting, and he spoke to the man who started it. Why are you hitting your neighbor? And the man shot back, who do you think you are telling us what to do? Are you going to kill me the way you killed that Egyptian? Moses panicked. Word's gotten out. People know about this. Pharaoh heard about it, and he tried to kill Moses. But Moses got away to the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Okay, it's in this land of Midian that you can read it for yourselves in Exodus 2, but he meets some people at the well, and they take him back into their family, and he marries Zipporah, which means bird, and he finds a bit of a place there. And then it says, many years later, the king of Egypt died, and the Israelites groaned under their slavery and cried out. Their cries for relief for their hard labor ascended to God, and God listened to their groanings. And God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God saw what was going on with Israel, and God understood. God understood. That's a real important word for somebody here today. God understands. So we have got this absolutely beautiful and amazing story. The more I read this story, the more I was like thinking, there's so much treasure in this story. When you plan for a talk, right, you I have the passage and I read it and I read it and I read it and I study it and I read some commentary on it and I listen to talks on it. And then the more I'm listening and the more I'm reading this and the more I'm reflecting on it, I'm finding just amazing treasure in it. It's such a brilliant thing to do. So I'd just encourage you to read the Bible over and over sometimes because there's so much treasure in it. And these are the 4 bits of treasure. There's so much in it. I mean, I could bring out so many different things, but these are the 4 bits of treasure that I found in it that I think, that is absolutely amazing. First of all, the first bit of treasure I found in this is that this is a story of freedom. We know that Exodus is a story of salvation. It's a story of freedom. It's a story of people that find themselves lost and in need of help, and God finds them and frees them. God doesn't just stand at a distance. God just doesn't watch. He understands. He sees them, and he brings freedom. There are stories of freedom woven all the way through the Bible, aren't there? One after the other of salvation. It reminds us, like a thread going through a tapestry. You see it, and then you see it again, and then you see it again, and you think, look at that story of freedom going all the way through the Bible, going all the way through all the books. And of course, Jesus was the ultimate story of freedom, where he came and he brought people that were in terrible trouble freedom. At the beginning of Exodus, Eugene Peterson says this: the human race is in trouble. We've been in trouble for a long time. Enormous energies have always been and continue to be extended by many men and women trying to get us out of the trouble we're in, to clean up the world's mess. It's true, isn't it? We're in a mess now, aren't we? The skill, the perseverance, the intelligence, the devotion of the people who put their soldiers to the wheel to pull us out of the muck, parents and teachers, healers and counselors, rulers and politicians, writers and pastors, are impressive. But at the center and core of this work is God. Salvation is the most comprehensive term for what God is doing to get us out of the mess we are in. Salvation is God doing for us what we can't do for ourselves. Salvation is the biggest word in the vocabulary of the people of God. The Exodus is powerful, dramatic, a true story of God working salvation. The story has generated an extraordinary progeny through the centuries. It has reproduced itself in song and poem, drama and word, politics and social justice, repentance and conversation, worship and holy living. It continues to capture the imagination of men and women, especially men and women in trouble. it is significant that God does not present us with salvation in the form of an abstract truth, a precise definition, a catchy slogan, but as a story. The book of Exodus draws us into a story with a plot and characters, which is to say with design and personal relationships. A story is an invitation for us to participate with our total lives in response to God, first through our imagination and then, if we will, by faith. God continues to use the Exodus story to draw men and women out of the mess of history and into the kingdom of salvation. Don't you think that's absolutely incredible? The message of salvation for all of us that runs through every section of the Bible. Amazing. That's the first thing I noticed. The second thing I notice is this, that at the beginning of this story, in Exodus 1 and 2, there are some really, really courageous, brave, and tenacious women that make a difference, that make an incredible difference. The first women that create an amazing difference are the midwives. The midwives are the women who, though they have been given this order to kill the baby boys, they decide they are not going to go with the order of the king. They are going to go with what God says, and that is that they're not going to kill those baby boys. And they are brave, and they are tenacious, and they put their faith and they put their conscience before anything else. What bravery those women are showing us. Then we've got the bravery of Moses' mother, his own mum. What a brave lady. She has this baby and she says, I'm not letting go of this baby without a fight. I'm going to make she's in a crisis. They're all in a crisis. There's a crisis because they're in terrible situation with the slave labor, but also they're in a crisis because she is in danger of her baby being taken and drowned in the Nile. That's what she's in danger of. That's her crisis. And yet she makes this boat. She makes a boat for him. I just find this incredible. And she puts him in the reeds so that he's safe. She puts him in the Nile, the very place where the babies are drowning. She puts him in the Nile in this little boat. The bravery of Moses' mum, her intuition, her incredible decisiveness to save her son is incredible. And then we have Miriam. They don't mention Miriam, but they mention her, but not her name. But she's the sister. Miriam is the sister. She stands at a distance. I bet she's praying. I bet she's praying for her brother. And as soon as the Pharaoh's daughter comes and picks him out of the water, she's there, isn't she? She's there. She didn't hold back. She's there. She's like, I'm going to make sure that my brother's okay. She gets there. She says, do you want somebody to look after this baby? Yes. She takes him back to her mother. What an ingenious thing to do. What a brave thing to do. What a courageous thing Miriam does. A young girl in that situation. And then, of course, we have Moses' adopted mum, Pharaoh's daughter. I mean, I was laughing because when I looked at this, it's full of M's, right? I loved it. It had midwives, mother, Miriam. But then when I got to the Pharaoh's daughter, I couldn't find an M except for Milady or something like that. But anyway, I like the M thing. Remember that. And we got Moses as well. Moses with the M. But anyway, this lady, she takes him out of the water. And she decides very bravely that she is going to look after this baby when he's weaned, when he returns to her. She's going to adopt him. The bravery of her is incredible. The bravery of these women save that little baby. But not only save that little baby, save the whole of the nation of Israel. Because of their bravery, because they did something in a crisis which was incredible. They contributed to saving that whole nation. So I just think, what do we do in a crisis? We've got several examples here. We've got these women who actually, they were in a terrible dilemma, and they chose what they were going to do in that crisis. And then we got Moses, who is also in a crisis, who doesn't do anything, does he? Because he's a baby. He just is a baby in it. What do we do in a crisis? I think we need both of those things. We need to say, God, what do you want me to do in this crisis? Do you what decisive action, what brave action do I need to take? And also have the rest, like Moses would have had, of knowing that we can trust in God. We need both of those things in a crisis. I don't know if you're in a crisis yourself, but I pray that you will know the decisive action that you need to take in the crisis that you're in, and that you also will know the peace of that decision. So we have these amazing women. I was thinking, I don't know if do you remember Mary Whitehouse? Has anybody watched the Mary Whitehouse story thing? Oh, yeah, okay. Me and Joe have. Well done. Anyway, Mary Whitehouse, right? She was... Do you remember who she was, though? The older people, when I said this to my children, they were like, who are you talking about, Mum? Anyway, Mary Whitehouse was, when I was younger, she was... a lady. She was quite posh, wasn't she? She had pearls and glasses, and she was quite posh, and she would speak up against pornography, and she would speak up against promiscuity, especially in films and stuff like that. And sometimes I was maybe a little bit embarrassed because she was a Christian, and she was totally Christian, and I was a Christian and a young person. I used to say, oh, this is, because she's very, very down the line. Anyway, there's this whole TV series on looking at what she did. So 20 years ago, she spoke up against things that were like pornography, and against things that were going on in the world. And everybody was like, oh, that's ridiculous. You need to be freer. You need to, that you need a sense of humor, or you need to lighten up. Or it was that sort of feeling about it. And now they look back at her after this amount of time, and they're saying that actually some of the things that she did and said and stood up for, though they were completely dismissed, are absolutely what we would disagree with now. So she was saying that that some of the women in these films were being abused, right? And now it turns out that they were. That is what was happening. And she stood up in the face of everybody saying, oh, just sit down and be quiet. She stood up and she said, I believe in this. And now, 20 years later, there's a different story. They're actually, some of the politicians, no, it wasn't politicians, it was journalists, were saying that they had distanced themselves from her. But they wish that they hadn't, because now, 20 years later, people are saying that was wrong what happened there. There was abuse with what happened there. And now our culture is very, very different. And I think what I'm thinking more and more is, we have to base our lives on something. And I choose to base my life on the truth of Jesus, on the truth that he brings. Culture, right, will tell us a lot of different stories in our lifetime. Culture will push us this way, push us that way. Culture will tell us a different story. Laws will change while we're alive. They will come and go, this law will happen, this law will happen. What are we going to base our lives on? I want to base my life on the truth of Jesus, on the truth that he brought. I don't want to... what are the things that I believe now that in 20 years' time I'll think, why didn't I stand up more for that? Why didn't I say that wasn't okay then? Why did I go along with it? What are the things that we will think, I wish that I had more perception at that point here. I mean, I suppose that will always happen. And one of the things with thinking about standing on God's truth is that, of course, we all have a different version of God's truth in a way. Some people may think this and some people may think that. People may think this or the other. But the most important thing is that the most important law that Jesus gives us is love the Lord your God with all of your heart and love each other as yourself. Love the Lord. Those are the two things that we base our whole lives on. That those are the things that we want. We want to follow what Jesus says. His law, they don't, the culture changes, laws will change, and I'm not in any way suggesting that we break the law. But these midwives, they did break the law. They broke the law because there was a higher law, and that was what God was saying. And so let us be aware of that when we stand up for each other. Let us be aware of that. I love it that he married Zipporah. We'll hear a little bit more about Zipporah later. But Zipporah means bird. Don't you think it's beautiful? Bird, for me, feels like freedom. He married bird. He married freedom. I think that's absolutely beautiful. And she's another woman that stood up. Okay, third thing that I notice that I think is absolutely beautiful in this is that we are all part of a story. We're all part of the big story of the big story of salvation, the big story of freedom, the big story that is going on right now. We are all part of it. We have all got something to offer in this big story, but we also have something to offer in the little story, in people's lives. You have something to bring. You have something to contribute in the small stories of people's lives. That might be with your children. You might be part of their story for a time or for a long time. But you might be part of the story of your friends or people around you. You are a vital part of the story. I've been looking back at 50. We're 50 this year. The church is 50. Isn't that exciting? So we're going to have big celebrations. It's going to be great. But I was looking. I was actually making a list of all the people that had left church over the years, and so to invite them back. So I was making this list, and I was thinking, isn't it fascinating? Everybody brings their part of the story to this place as well, to the church. We all have a contribution to make to the story of the church, the story of how it goes, what happens. There's good things that happen in a community, in a church, and there's hard things that happen, and we're all part of it. We're all part of the story, and we all have our contribution to make to the story, and we have our contribution to make in each other's stories. Yesterday, we went to a tea shop in Arundel. We went for a walk, and we were in this tea shop in Arundel, and there's these really chatty people next to us. And so we chatted as well. We were having a chat with them, and she was with her daughter, and it was just two of them, the mother and her daughter, and they'd come from Canada. She hadn't seen her daughter for 2 years, and they were talking together. And when you start talking and you think, I think these people are Christians, you just have that feeling, don't you? But anyway, it turns out she went to HDB, and her mum had become a Christian, and we had this most brilliant talk together. It was life-giving. It was surprising. It was not anticipated in any way. We had this great chat together, and I thought, we become part of their story, they become part of ours. We're all part of each other's stories. Are you the midwife in the story? Are you the mother in the story? Are you the sister in the story? Are you the adopted mother? What are you in the story? Are you Moses? Where do we all fit in the story? We've all got something to bring, and that's such a great thing to know. The last thing that I want to say is this. The last thing that I noticed is that Moses, right? The people, Joseph, right, before Moses, he had gone through all that terrible stuff, hadn't he? And he'd gone to prison, and then he was made friends with Pharaoh, right? And he became very influential because he had made friends with Pharaoh, and he influenced the whole thing, and it was incredible. Wouldn't you have thought, right, if we hadn't got to this bit of the story, that the same thing was going to happen with Moses? Because, right, Moses, from a completely new background, Hebrew background, gets taken into the palace. Wouldn't you have thought, like if you were writing this story, wouldn't it be a great idea now if Moses, he's now become Pharaoh's, adopted son. He's going to get power, influence. He's going to make friends with Pharaoh. Pharaoh's going to love him. And then through that favor that Pharaoh has with Moses is now going to see the people set free. Isn't that a great plan? Is that what God was planning when he sent Moses to the palace? Is that what the plan was? Well, I'll tell you what. Moses messed up the plan, whatever it was, whatever plan that was going on, he messed up the plan completely. Because what did Moses, he'd been championed by all these people, he'd been protected, he'd had the best start that he possibly could have, and then what does Moses do? He goes and kills this bloke. He's a murderer. Another M. A murderer. He murders this bloke. What are you doing, Moses? Aren't you going to become like Pharaoh's number 2 and set the people free? Oh, no. Oh, dear. He's blown it. He's blown it, hasn't he? He's killed somebody. The worst. What? At the 10 Commandments that Moses brings down, he's done the worst, hasn't he? He's murdered this bloke because he's not happy with him. And then, now he's in terrible trouble. The whole plan's up the chute, isn't it? I'd have thought that. I'd have thought, well, this salvation plan, it's not really working, is it? It's now Moses runs away. Pharaoh finds out. He says, I'm after you. He runs away. How many times have we messed up in our life? How many times have we just I hope that nobody's murdered somebody, but even if you have, we do the wrong thing. We mess up sometimes. How many times have you invested in somebody and poured your life into them like these women would have, risked their lives, and then the person messes up and goes off and does what they want to somewhere? How many times has that happened in our lives? You know what I think is amazing about this story is that look what Moses does after he murders somebody. I mean, you don't know yet. Well, I mean, if you know your Bible, you'll know what happens next, but we'll find out that next week. But God takes people that mess up. God takes people that do the wrong thing. God takes people that completely and utterly mess up the plan, and he uses them. Don't you think that's good news, everybody? I mean, I think that's amazing news. And one thing that I want to say that so struck me was it says this. It says that, so it says, Pharaoh heard it and tried to kill Moses. But Moses got away to the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Okay, everybody, what do we do when we mess up? What do we do when things are crisis? What do we do when things are difficult? Go and sit down by the well. What was the well? The well was a place where all the community came because they all needed water. So if you went to the well, I guess you'd meet somebody. And the well was also a place where you where you got water, where you got life-giving water. I pray that this church will always be a well. I pray that this place will always, always be a place where if you've messed up, if you're in trouble, if you've done something and you shouldn't have done it, that you come here to the well. Because you'll find somebody that will say, well, I'll pray for you, or I'll stand with you, or I'll have a chat with you, and where you can find some life-giving water. And maybe even you haven't messed up, but you're in a crisis. And sometimes in a crisis, it's so easy for us to think, let's just run away. Just get away. Just don't be here. But God says, come to the well. Come to the well. Come where people can sit with you, where people can love you. I remember when my mum died, in many ways, it was difficult to walk back into this place because she'd been there the week before, and I kept seeing her head, and I kept seeing her. But it was the best place for me to heal that I could have ever been, with you. I found healing with you by being with the water and being with the people. And you know, when we're in a crisis and when we do the wrong thing and when we're struggling, sometimes people do say the wrong thing to us. It's life. Do you know, sometimes I say the wrong thing to people. I often say the wrong thing to people and think, oh, why did you say that? That was silly. But you know, when we're in crisis, when we have done the wrong thing, when we really need God, I just encourage us, may our practice be that we always come to the well. Come to the well. Come to the place where the community will be. Come to the place where you'll find water and where you'll find life again. And here's to the second chances that God gives to each one of us every day. Thank you, God, for that. I wonder if the band can come on up. There's one last thing that I was going to read out, which is a brilliant quote that I found. It says this, it's by Rabbi John Sachs. To be a leader, you do not need a crown or robes of office. All you need to do is write your chapter in the story and do deeds that heal some of the pain in this world and act so that others become a little better for having known you. Live so that through you, our ancient covenant with God is renewed in the only way that matters in life. In life, Moses' last testament to us, at the very end of his days, when his mind might have so easily turned to death, was to choose life. So let us be people that write the chapter of our story or become part of the story. Let us make our contribution to the church, to each other, and to this big story that we're in. May we bring freedom, may we bring life